On Kufchav test 129a, heading towards a new Mishnah soon. So we just had 4 opinions when you use a language of gifting of matana and a language of inheriting Yerusha, and you want to go give something to somebody. So if you use both those languages together, so what's the halacha going to be? So we said that the first opinion held that really when you say a language of gifting and a language of inheritance, since you can't have someone who's not fitting to inherit it, we don't hear that. So all we hear is the lashon of gifting, and therefore the gift is going to be good. That's only going to work by one person in one field, one person in 2 fields, 2 people in 1 field. That's not going to work. Second opinion held it's going to work even by one person in 2 fields, 2 people in 1 field. But if it's 2 people in 2 separate fields, that's not going to work. The third opinion held it'll even work a language of gifting and inheriting, even when it's 2 people and 2 fields. And then we ended off yesterday with the opinion of Reish Lakish. He's the unique opinion that says, so we're 10 lines from the bottom. Last 2 words is Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish Amar, he says that anytime you have the words inheritance and the words matana and the words gifting, and you're dealing with multiple people, it's going to automatically split its way up. So if you want to gift land to Reuben and Shimon, and use a language of inheritance, whether you use language of inheritance in the beginning of your sentence, at the end of your sentence, and then you want to gift it to them, since it's 2 separate people that you're trying to gift the things to, then the words are going to sort of grab on each individual acquisition. So because of that, there's only very specific cases that you can actually have this acquisition work. So Reish Lakish says you have to say the following formulation. Lo kana, you're not going to acquire land. Ad sheyomar, ploni uploni, so until you say this person, yirshu sada plonis, they're going to inherit. Now, once again, if you don't use the word inheritance, you're good to go. You're getting yourself into trouble by using the word inheritance, but okay. So unless maybe what you mean to say is I want someone to get it after I die. So the way you say that is inheritance. Now the problem is you want to inherit to someone who's not fit to be inheriting it, right? Your next door neighbor. I don't know, assuming he's not a relative. So until you say ploni yirshu sada plonis, ploni are going to inherit this land, sada plonis uplonis, inherit these lands, this land and this land, and then shenasati lehem b'matana, which I'm giving to them as a present, the Yirshum, and they're going to inherit it. So now, he says in the beginning the word Yerusha, and at the end the word Yerusha. So that's clearly referring to 2 separate people. That's the way Reish Lakish understands, right? Ploni Yirshu, and then at the end he says the Yirshum, they should inherit. So he has 2 mentions of the word inherit. In the middle he says that he Shenasati lahem bimatana. It's a double language of gifting also. Shenasati. I'm going to give it to you, bimatana, as a gift. So now, I think the way the Rashbam explains that, we look at the word Yerusha and we see, it's going to 2 separate people. Therefore, the 2 words of matana will go on to each individual person also. So therefore, when you formulate it in this way, that it's clear that the Yerusha is the 2 separate people, and you put the word matana in the middle, so the 2 words of matana in the middle, that's also going to latch on to the 2 individual people, and then basically you're left with each person has a lashon, a language of matana, and therefore it'll be a good gift. That's basically Reish Lakish's opinion. Okay, now these 4 opinions we're going to show you is actually a machlokas of sounds like of later opinions also. Beplukta. So now we're going to bring the following opinions which have the same machlokas. Amar of Hamnuna, lo shanu ela adam echad besada achas. This follows the first opinion that we had of Rav Dim in the name of Yochanan. So Rav Hamnuna sides with him of adam echad besada achas, 1 person, 1 field. Aval adam echad v'shtei sados sada achas v'shnei bnei adam. Lo, but 1 person and 2 fields, 2 people in 1 field. If you use a language of matana, of gifting, and Yerusha, so that's not going to be good because you can't give over an inheritance to somebody who's not fitting to inherit. This is just a repeat a repeat of these few opinions, just with other names. But we're going to bring this for the bottom. Rav Nachman goes like the second opinion, that even one person in two fields, two people in one field, this formulation will still work because we don't hear the word inheritance. We only hear the word gifting. Since inheritance doesn't work over here, so it's like he said nothing. So take the part of the sentence that works, and that's the part that we hear. However, the second opinion was of al shnei sados, the shnei bnei adam lo, two fields to two people. That's already too much. If you're going to use that language, it's clearly that you're trying to give over an inheritance to somebody which is not able to be, who is not fitting to inherit the property. Okay. Even two fields to two people, and use a language of matana and yerusha, it's still going to work, just like the opinion before. So now, we didn't mention Reish Lakish's opinion here. We just reviewed the first three. Says Rav Sheshes now, why do I hold what I hold? Where do I get this from? He's going to bring another case, which is very similar to our case, which is going to involve giving something in an inheritance and a present to somebody. And we're going to see that it works. Now, once Rav Sheshes is going to show us where his opinion's from, so then it's going to be a little bit of a question on everybody else. And if he can bring a proof to his opinion, so then the other opinions are going to have to deal with that proof. So let's see. So a similar case to giving over an inheritance as a gift is the following case. Ditanya ha'omer, a father says, Tinu shekel lebini. He's old enough now. I want him to get a weekly salary. I think 1 shekel is enough to sustain him. So give him 1 shekel a week. Okay. Tenu shekel lebini b'Shabbos. It doesn't mean that instead of a candy man, he gets a shekel on Shabbos. It means that on a weekly basis, he should get a shekel. Okay. However, the amount this person needs, he lives somewhere far out there, somewhere like in Portland, the kosher food is more expensive. So it's not going to fit a shekel. It's not going to work. V'ra'uyin litain sela. What he needs to survive for the week is a sela. So there's 2 shekels. 2 or 4? I think 2. 2 shekels, yeah. So what do you do now? The father said, I want my son to live, to get sustained. I gave him a shekel. You should give him a shekel. However, he needs more than that to either talking to someone who's on his deathbed or a healthy guy going overseas. He's not going to be around to sustain his children. So he's telling, the guardian, so to speak, this is what they should give him. So what's the halacha? So no sin lahan sela, even if the father said a shekel, but we assume the father just meant to sustain the son. So if the son needs more, we can take more from the father's account and give it to the son. No sin lahan sela. Fine. What if the father said, "V'im amar al titnu lahen ela shekel"? You should only give him a shekel. The father was very exact. I know what he needs, and I still want only a shekel. Then you're stuck. Ein no sin ela shekel. Then you can only do what the father said and give him exactly a shekel. Fine. The case that we need is the next case. V'im amar, if the father said imesu yirshu acherim, meaning instead of the inheritance going to my son, I want someone else to inherit it. So I want my son to have some of my money, a shekel a week. But if, however, if he dies, though, yirshu acherim tachtem. If he dies or if the sons die, or both. What? He dies, right? It says he may sue if they die. Okay. Yirshu acherim tachtem. Why I say they? Okay. It means if he dies, the other people, the kid's friends are going to inherit instead of the kids. So one sec. So now what happens? So now what? They. If the kids die.
Why should they die?
Why should?
Or should they die?
Or should they die? He wants someone else to inherit them. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
so meaning
inherit, right.
the kids are going to inherit him. But when they die, he wants someone else to inherit. So why does he say this? He says this because he's just saying this because he wants that part of his estate will be left over for those other people. So he told his children specifically a shekel. However, he wants to make sure that he has leftover to give to other people, to give to the other people that are going to inherit in their stead. So, 1 second. Right. So I mean, he doesn't want all of his inheritance to go to his children, because in the event that they die, he wants the inheritance to go somewhere else. So he always wants to leave part of his inheritance to go to other people. So now he wants some money to go to his children, specifically a shekel a week. That was given over in the language of a matana, of a gift. Give to my son a shekel. However, I want, other portions of this property to be given over as an inheritance. So if he says that, then Bein Amar Tenu, Bein Amar Al Titnu, doesn't matter what he says, we know, Ein Nos Lahan Ela Shekel. Because we see he wants to preserve his property, that he wants to make sure that there's some left over for others to inherit. So therefore he said it, therefore we can only give the son a shekel. So now, this is very similar to our case. Our case was you're giving two people a gift and you use a language of inheritance. In this case, he's giving a gift and an inheritance, and he uses both languages, and he wants to give that to multiple people. So says the Gemara, the hahacha, says Rosh Hashis, this is my proof. The hahacha, the kishtei sados, here it's like two fields, because just like our case was two fields, this case is two different groups of money. So right. It's like two fields, and it's like two different people, because you have the children getting a shekel, and you have the others who are going to inherit, who he wants to preserve the inheritance for them. So, okay. And what do we see? The katani, and it teaches us dikaniu. So dikani, and it says it works. It works. This works. Part of your money will be given over on a weekly basis to your son, and part of your money will be preserved. You're leaving town, and the estate will be preserved in the case of the children dying to some other people.
It's always interesting how the wording has to be so explicit.
Yeah.
All these dealings.
It is, yeah. Partially, maybe not partially, maybe fully, because the second you leave any room for ambiguity.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know law so well, but I'm assuming that lawyers, this is part of their,
Yeah.
you can find that little loophole in that one way it was stipulated, and now we're in business, and a good lawyer knows how to do that. We want to avoid, speaking of good lawyers, okay.
Number 2,
If you brought a nice
treats for us.
If you brought a nice coffee, it's one thing, but so okay. So what do you see? It says that he acquired it. The katani dikani. So it says Rosh Hashis. So okay, so now it's a support for him, but then in essence, it's an attack on the other opinions. We see that two fields to two people works.
Mm-hmm.
So the first two opinions held one field to two people does not work for sure, not two fields to two people. And the other opinion held that one field to two people does work, but not two fields to two people. So Rosh Hashis brings a support to himself, but then it's going to be an attack on the earlier opinions. So now, even though he's siding with one of the earlier opinions, but he just attacked the two other early opinions. So what are you going to do with that? So sometimes you ask a question and you have an answer also. Who mosiv la, who mafarik la. He asked it and he has an answer. This case that when a person's given to his children and then wants others to inherit, it's talking about where the others he wants to inherit are people that are biroi liyorsho. They're not random other childhood friends of his children. They're other siblings, people who are fitting to inherit. And it's going like the opinion of, which we'll see a lot of today, Rav Yochanan ben Brokahi. Rav Yochanan ben Brokahi says that you can give your inheritance to one of your children. You can give all of your inheritance to one of your children. So he wants these children to not get an inheritance. He wants other children to, yes, get an inheritance. So therefore, it has nothing to do with our case because it's a specific case where you are fitting to inherit. Our whole Gemara with all these different opinions, it's because you're giving over an inheritance to people that cannot inherit, right? You're using a language of gifting and inheritance to your friends. So there we say, how strongly do you hear those words inheritance? Really, you can't have someone else inherit who's not fitting to inherit. I can't give my next door neighbor here inherit this. That doesn't mean anything. But if I use a language of a gift also, then you could say what he just means to say is he wants to give it to you after he dies. He means to give it to you as a gift. But once you're talking that everyone here is fit to inherit, so now there's nothing wrong with using a language of inheritance. So just because it's two people in two fields, but it's all people that could inherit. So that's not going to be any more a difficulty on our discussion. It's a separate discussion. So, okay. Fine. So that's that. Now, Rav Ashi is going to bring us a little technical, but Rav Ashi is going to bring also a case that should be a proof. And he'll try to answer the way that we just answered. Maybe it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Then he's going to show you how it cannot be Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and therefore the proof's going to be a good proof, and therefore it's going to be a good attack. That's going to be the setup. So, Amar Rav Ashi, Tashma. We learned in the following price. A person says, Nechasai lecha, my property, my nechasim, my acquisitions are lecha for you. They go to you. Now, who are you? I don't know. You. Pick you. Yeah, you're you. So now, and now he says, but listen, v'acharecha, after you leave the world, I want that person, Yarish Ploni. I want the other guy. So first I want John, and then you're speaking to John. After you die, I want Jim to inherit. V'acharei Jim, v'acharei acharecha, I want Jack to inherit. So nechasei lecha, v'acharecha Yarish Ploni. V'acharei Yiresh Ploni. So, nechasim are given to you. That sounds like a gift. These are to you. However, after you, he's going to inherit, and after him, he's going to inherit. So we have three people. The guy what'd you say? That's right. That's right. You should hang out with people that are a little more optimistic, I guess, than everyone dying around them. But yeah. So now, the first person's getting things as a gift. Right, nechasei can be interpreted simply as a gift. The other two, guy number 2 and guy number 3, are all going to inherit after their predecessors. So now, what's the halacha? So now, Meis Rishon. So if the first guy that he said, "Here's my inheritance, here's my property," if he dies, kana sheni, Meis Sheni, kana shlishi, exactly the way he said it. Perfect. Now. Guy number 2 didn't wait for guy number 1 to die. Guy number 2 died before guy number 1 died. So guy number 2 was in line to inherit from guy number 1. That was what's supposed to happen. Broke the chain. Yeah. Guy number 2, he died before guy number 1. Now what happens? Everything gets broken up. And everything goes back to the first person's inheritors, his heirs. Oh, fine. So that is the statement. That is the brisa. Okay. Now, says the Gemara of the hahacha, that's like the kishtesa. Those are shnei bnei adam dami. You're giving something to one person, right? In the same sentence, you're giving over an inheritance to somebody else. So you're saying you get this, and he's going to inherit that. And yet, what do you see? It sounds like we really only hear the words, "I'm gifting this to you," and after you die, I'm gifting it to you, and after you die, I'm gifting it to you, because you can't have someone inherit something that's not able to inherit. And what do we see? V'katani dekana, and it works. This is a good acquisition. So now, that would seem to be a support for an opinion earlier that says, when you use a language of gift and inheritance, and you have two people in two fields, we still view it as a gift. Now, if that would be true, that would be a rejection of the other opinions that said that by two people in two fields, that's already too much. You can't. We view it as the word inheritance goes on this person and on this field, and the words of a gift goes on this person and that field, and therefore you can't inherit to someone. You can't bequeath to somebody who's not able to inherit. However, we see in his brisa not that way. So it's a support for the third opinion and a rejection of the first two. We'll get back to Reish Lakish at the end. But so now what do you do? And maybe, and now it's going to be a little bit maybe you'll tell me, just like you answered before, we're talking about a specific case where the guy number 2 and guy number 3 were all fit to inherit guy number 1. Maybe that's what you're talking about. We're talking about people that are fitting to inherit the land, and we're going like the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi. And if that would be true, then once again, it has no relevance to our conversation, because our conversation is talking about people who are not fit to be inherited and to inherit and use a language of inheritance. Once you're fitting to inherit and you're like the world of Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi, it's not an attack, it's not a proof on anything. Just an interesting statement. So now we're gonna attack this attempted answer and uphold our question. If that's true, that you're going like Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi, so how could it be Meis Sheni Kana Shlishi? How could the halacha be that the second guy dies and the third guy will acquire? The third person will acquire. It can't be. Why not? Hashalach Rav Acha b'reider Rav Avia. Rav Acha said, the son of Rav Avia said, L'divrei Rabbi Yochanan, according to the words of Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi, if you say the following, if you say nechasai lecha, my nechasim, my property will go to you. V'acharecha leploni, and after you, it will go to the next guy. And you're choosing someone who's fitting to inherit. So not someone who's necessarily going to be the one to inherit, but who's fitting to be inherited. So, like Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi said, you can give all your property to one of your children. So now you're giving it to somebody who's still fitting to inherit, not necessarily the first in line to inherit, but someone who's able to inherit. So, maybe not the firstborn. You can go around him. So now, what does he say? My nechasim are to you, and after you, the rishon royal yorsho, the first guy is able to inherit. If the first guy can inherit, ein l'sheni b'makom rishon klum. The second guy gets nothing from the first guy. Why not? Why? She'ein zeh lashon matana, ella lashon yerusha. Because really, this is not a language of a gift. This is a language of yerusha. The yerusha ein la hefsek. Yerusha, you can't stop it. It's like an 18-wheeler. You can't stop it. Meaning, you can't say once the first guy is going to inherit. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi, he really inherits my property to you. He's going to inherit that really as a language of inheritance. But once you're giving that over, you should inherit, and then after you, it's the first guy should inherit. Once that first guy inherits it, so then if he dies, it can only go to his heirs. It can't go to somebody else, because a Yerusha there's no stopping it. It goes in a certain order. So you can't veer off the track of Yerusha. What is that?
Somebody else can't give away those stuff.
Correct. One second. Right. So since the second guy got it from the first guy as an inheritance, but he cannot give it to a third guy. He can't give it to a third guy. Rather, it's going to go to the heirs of the second guy. Right.
Inheritance cannot be given up.
Right. One second. Yeah. So now, yeah. So therefore, this statement, it's just not going to work if it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokahi, because it can't go from the second guy to the third guy. It's just going to go to the heirs of the second guy. So therefore, it's really a good question. It's not talking about someone who's fitting to inherit. It's talking about Jack and Jim and John, 3 people, and you want to give it to them and use the language of inheritance, and yet we see that it works. Sounds like tiyufta de kula tiyufta. Anybody who said that using a language of a gift and a language of an inheritance to 2 people with 2 different properties, anybody who said that does not work, this brisa is a direct attack on them, and therefore they are knocked out. And the last opinion is supported, that even when you use a language of a gift and an inheritance to 2 people for 2 different properties, it can still be given over. It can still be given over. And the fact that you use language of inheritance, so we don't hear that in light of the word of in light of the language of a gift. All we hear is that you want to gift your things over these two fields to these two people. The language of inheritance, we don't hear that, and therefore it's not against the Torah, because it's meaningless to inherit to bequeath to someone who cannot inherit. Okay. Up until now, we're only discussing those first three opinions about can you give this in this way, can you give it over to two people with two different fields? We had a fourth opinion of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was very exact in his formulation. He said even two fields to two people, it could work, but only if you say it in my way. That you have to say the word inheritance in the beginning, the word inheritance at the end, two languages of the word gift in the middle. Therefore, just like I see that your inheritance is going to two people, I see that you want to gift it to two people also, and then and only then to be considered a gift. But if you want to gift things over to two people with two different properties and you don't use my exact formulation, it's not going to work. Well, in these cases, we didn't see any specific formulation like Reish Lakish said, and yet we see that it works. So says the Gemara, Lema Nami Tavit Tifti de Reish Lakish. So maybe this should also be a knockout of Reish Lakish, because he didn't use Reish Lakish's formulation, and yet the acquisition works. So says the Gemara, the Tizbara, it can't be against Reish Lakish, because Hamar Rava Hilchsa Kavasi the Reish Lakish Bahani Tlat. Rava made a statement in Yevamos that the halacha goes like Reish Lakish in three cases. This is one of the three cases. So that when you want to give land over to two different people, two different parts of land to two different people, you have to follow Reish Lakish's formulation. But on the other hand, you have this brisa that says that if you want to give land over to John and then give it over to Jack and give it over to Jim, even if you use the language of inheritance, it's still going to work without any specific formulation. So how do you fit those two things together? So we say it depends. We're going to fix up Reish Lakish. Kan b'tov k'dei dibur and kan la'achar k'dei dibur. So there's a general principle that sometimes in certain areas you can, if you mistakenly spoke, you can fix it up in the matter of time it says to say, Shalom Alecha Rebbe. Hello to you, my Rebbe. 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So the brisa was talking about where you said it within that period of time. Reish Lakish was saying, if you did not say it, if you said a language of Matana or Yerusha, if you said it together in one sentence. However, there is if you said it not tokei dibur, meaning farther apart than 2 or 3 seconds, then you can use my formulation and then it's going to work. If you don't use my formulation, so then you only have 2 seconds to retract. You have to say Matana and Yerusha within 2 seconds, because then we see that you really mean to give it as a gift. If you don't do that, so then you could use my formulation. That's what we're going to have to say for Reish Lakish. Right. According to Reish Lakish, if you'd say the language of inheritance after, 3 seconds after you said the word of matana, of a gift, it's not going to work. Yeah. Unless you use his formulation, then that will work. Okay. So now the halacha is, so first of all, he just answered. Reish Lakish was talking about, this Bryce is talking about when it's tokei dibur, within that period of time, within 2-3 seconds. And Khan, Reish Lakish is talking about that things are never going to work. That's when you say it la'achar k'dei dibur. So when Reish Lakish says that this doesn't work, he was talking about when you said the word inheritance a few seconds after the word matana. In this case, you didn't do that. Okay. The hilchas and the halacha is kol tokei dibur kid dibur dami. Anytime you say something and you retract within that period of time, we take your retraction as the primary statement. So let's say you finish a sentence and right away, you say, right? So you don't hear the eight, you hear the ha'adama. So meaning we don't view, usually when you say two different things, you can view it as someone retracted. He changed his mind. I want to drive this car today. No, I actually want to drive that car today, right? I want to drive the Toyota, the Honda. So what do you mean? You just wanted to drive the Toyota, and you realize the Honda is better for today's weather. So you're driving the Honda, right? However, we say that the halacha is when you say Toga Dibur Kedibur Dami, we don't view it like you changed your mind. Rather, we view it like the second word you said, that's what you want. The Rishbam here explains a little bit nicely. He says, it's like you said two things together. So if two things make sense, if both parts of your statement make sense, we'll take both of them. So, however, if both of the words don't make sense, then we have to take the second one. And the first one's like it doesn't exist anymore. So he says, for example, like when you say when you say Yerusha Umatana, you want to give an inheritance and a gift to somebody. So Lashon Yerusha doesn't make any sense. That goes. That is no place to latch onto. But Lashon Matana, the language of a gift, that does have a place here. You can give things to people. Yeah. And if both parts of your statement are totally contradictory, so that's already a machlokas. You take the first thing or the second thing. Okay, fine. But now that's true except for certain cases. Libar, excluding me'avodos chachamim v'kiddushin. So if a guy says, "I want this table to be idol worship," oh no, I'm just kidding, right? So that doesn't work. Or or if you marry somebody, you say, harei mekudeshesli, you give your wife a ring. Don't, as they say, don't try this at home, right? Or under the chuppah. Don't try. I want to marry you, and you give her a ring. Oh no, just kidding. Other lady, come down the aisle, whatever. So that you can't do because those things are too severe. These things are so severe that we say it doesn't work. Your first statement is what you meant, and you can't retract on that. Letting you retract in a certain way is saying that we understand the first thing you said. You really didn't mean. When something is so severe, and you have something that's on the line, like avodah zarah, where if you make it avodah zarah, first of all it's terrible. You have to burn it now. Or if you're getting married, which is beautiful, so then they're going to say that. So that's also going to be very strict, and therefore that doesn't work. Okay, fine, good. A new Mishnah, we made it. Haomer ish ploni yershenu b'makom sheyesh bas biti tirshenu. You only have a daughter, and you want someone else to inherit in the place of your daughter. Or you only have a son, and you want someone else to inherit in place of your son. Lo amar klum. You can't do that. The Torah says that you have to give inheritance in this way. You can't go against the Torah. Why? You're stipulating against what the Torah said. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, he seems to say a different statement. Right? This is the first part of the Mishnah says you're trying to give an inheritance to somebody who's not fit to be inherited. Right? So your son is Shimon and your neighbor is Jack. You say, listen, Jack, you're going to inherit instead of Shimon. That's not good. You can't do that. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says you have many children, and you're just saying Shimon, out of all your brothers, you get the entire inheritance. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, Omer im Amar al Mish Royal Yorsho, if you're giving to someone who's fit to inherit, so you can give it all to him. That's fine. Dvarav Kayamin. We're going to explain what his source is later. The al Mish Ein Royal Yorsho, Ein Dvarav Kayamin. So now this last statement, that you're giving over something to someone who's not fitting to inherit, that doesn't work. So that statement seems to be very repetitive of the first part of the Mishnah. So we have basically three parts of the Mishnah. The first part says you want to give your things over to someone who's not fitting to inherit, no good. Comes Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says, if you give everything to someone who's fit to inherit, yes, good, that does work. But then he ends off, but if you give things to someone who's not fitting to inherit, it's no good. Right? So statement number 3 seems to be a repetition of statement number 1 in the Mishnah. Okay. Yeah. Taima de acher b'makom bas, ubas b'makom ben. So now let's go on. Let's talk about the first part of the Mishnah, which says that if you only have sons, you can't give it to somebody else. If you only have daughters, you can't give it to somebody else. You have to give it to the one that's fitting to be inherited. Says the Gemara, Taima the acher makom bas, ubas makom ben. I mean, the reason why it's not good if you have someone else in the place of your daughter, or if it's your daughter in the place of your son, that's not good because that goes against the Torah. However, ben bein habanim ubas bein habanos dvarav kayamin. But the first part of the Mishnah implies very strongly that if you want to give it all to one daughter or give it all to one son, that's fine. It's just that you can't have someone else inherit in the place of your son, or you can't have your daughter inherit in the place of your son. But if you have only sons and you want to give it to one of the sons, the first part of the Mishnah says that's fine. It would imply that's fine. But if that's true, then what is Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka saying? He's just repeating the Mishnah then. Ema Seifa. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer Im Amar Al Mishur Eli Yorshut Dvar Kayamin. Hainu Tanakama. So the first part of the Mishnah said you can't give it to someone who's not fitting to be inherited, implying that as long as they're fitting to be inherited, they can take the whole thing. If that's true, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka said the exact same thing, just repeating Tanakama. So Hainu Tanakama. So question: what do? The Mishnah implies it's two separate opinions. We can't figure out where is their argument. They're not talking to each other. Everyone's agreeing. To give it to someone who can't get it, everyone holds you can't do. To give it to someone who is fitting to inherit and give him everything, everyone agrees that you get it. So where does Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka and Tanakama, where do they differ? Everyone's agreeing on everything. Mm-hmm. So says the Gemara, two answers. Potential answers. V'chitem Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Maybe you'll tell me Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is very extreme. Afilu acher b'makom bas ubas b'makom ben ka'amar. Maybe you'll say Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka tells you you can give it to anybody you want. You want to give it to your neighbor instead of your son, and go for it. You want your daughter to have it, instead of your son, go for it. What's wrong with that? Rabbi Shmuel benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer. Rabbi Shmuel said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka the following: Lo nechlaku Abba v'chachamim al acher b'makom bas. So someone named Abba and the Chachamim have a disagreement about something. However, they do not disagree al acher b'makom bas, that someone else can come and inherit in the place of your daughter, or your daughter can inherit in the place of her son. Shalom Amar Klum. They both agree. In that case, of course, it's nothing. You can't have your daughter inherit in the place of your son, or someone else inherit in the place of your son. It's not going to work. Alma nechlaku. What do they argue about? Al ben bein abanim ubas bein abanos. They argue about a daughter with other daughters and a son with other sons. She'aba omer yaresh, v'chama omer lo yaresh. So we see that Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, said that there's a machlokas Abba and the Chachamim, but they both agree that having someone else inherit instead of your son, or having your daughter inherit instead of your son, so everyone agrees that that is not going to be good. Yeah. So we're assuming that everyone agrees to that. No one argues on that. So it can't be that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is so extreme. So now, yeah. Ibais Ema. So what are we going to do with our Mishnah? Two answers. Ibais Ema b'dik amar lo nechlaku michlal the Tanakama savar nechlaku. So. From the fact that the Brisa said, this Brisa that we just brought says that lo nechlaku, meaning according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Nosha Rabbi Rocha, lo nechlaku Abba v'chachamim. It sounds like maybe. It sounds like the first opinion of that Brisa does hold that they argue. So it's very hard because we only have part of this Brisa, but it sounds like the Brisa says you should know. I hold that they don't argue about this, implying that someone else holds that they do argue about that. Meaning, then you would have an opinion of the Brisa that says that there is a disagreement. Can someone else inherit in the place of a son? Can someone else inherit in the place of a daughter? If that opinion would be true, so maybe that would be the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, he would say that there is another opinion out there that argues on me. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. And therefore, meaning, so just to clarify, this brisa says that Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Oh, he's talking about his father. The brisa says Rabbi Shmuel is the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is our main character over here, right? Rabbi Shmuel says, my father and the Chachamim agreed that someone else cannot inherit in place of a daughter or in place of a son, meaning someone who's not fitting to inherit cannot inherit. So that was Rabbi Shmuel saying that my father and the Chachamim never argued about that. They only argued about, can a son take everything or can a daughter take everything? But a random person in the place of the son definitely is not going to work. So now, the first answer is, it would sound like this. Rabbi Shmuel says, my father and the Chachamim never argued about that. However, the first opinion, another opinion would hold that they did argue about that. If they would argue about that, so maybe that's a machlokas on our Mishnah also. And it would really come out that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, according to one opinion, yeah, according to one opinion, even someone else could inherit in the place of a son. That would be the argument in our Mishnah. Tanakama would say no, someone else cannot inherit in place of your son, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka would be that extreme to say that even someone else can inherit in the place of the kid, in the place of your son. So a random person can inherit in the place of your son, or a daughter can inherit in the place of the son. That's the first answer. Or Ibais Ema, our Mishnah is entirely Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Ibais Ema Kollel de Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. And you have to reword the Mishnah like this: V'chasuri maxor v'hakikatani haomer ish ploni yersheni b'makom sheyesh bas bitit yersheni b'makom sheyesh ben lo omar klom. If someone tries to inherit in the place of a son, he said nothing. Or in place of a daughter, they said nothing. If a daughter is going to inherit in the place of a son, they said nothing. But you can imply from there, if a daughter is going to inherit everything, meaning you have a daughter amongst many daughters, you can give it all to one daughter. Ben abanim, and you can give it to one son. If there's many sons, you can give the whole inheritance to one son. Im amar yarish kol nechasav dvarav kayamin, and then you add this. So that would be the first part of the Mishnah, and then you add a sh, because since Rabbi Yochanan Omer, since Rabbi Yochanan said, Im amar al mishra liyarsho dvarav kayamin, as long as you say to somebody who's fitting to inherit, you get all the inheritance, your words are held up. They stand. Meaning, we're just saying that the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and just reword it so it doesn't seem like two opinions. Really, it's one opinion. And when it says Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, add in the word shit. Sure, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. The first part of the Mishnah tells you that even a son in the place of sons could inherit, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka said, as long as you're fitting to inherit, then you can inherit everything, and your siblings don't have to get anything. Now, it's okay. So, Omer Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, who's the halacha like? Halacha ki Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. So we have Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel saying like that. V'chein Amar Rava halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. And Rava also says that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. So now, what is his reasoning? Why does Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka say that you can give all your property to one of the sons, and you don't have to give it out evenly? So once again, we're going to bring a verse. Logically, you would say maybe you can't do this because everyone gets a fair share. However, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, it says instead of using a language of kids inheriting, it uses a language of a father bequeathing to the children. Amar Kra v'haya b'yom hanchilu as banav. You're giving over your inheritance to your children. Meaning, it could have phrased it when the day that comes and all the children inherit, but instead it says when the day comes and the father will give over to his children. This phraseology implies that the father has the rishus, he has the permission, he has the ability to bequeath land to any one of his sons that he wants. So, Amar le Abaye, what do you mean? It says, Milo yuchal levaker, nafka. It says only by the firstborn you can't give it to someone else, implying but the non-firstborn portions that you can give to whoever you want. So we say no. that we need that we need for the following brisa. Okay, let's see. Abba Chanan Amar Mishum Rabbi Lezer. No, look at this.